welcome to another Broken Toad build guide. Today we are working on the Goblin Rider. So once you've cleaned and washed all of your resin pieces, and we do have a video all about preparing your resin miniatures, go and have a look at that. You want to start, there's a few bits on this particular model which require not special attention, but they are different from the others. So there's a little mounting hole on the top of the head of the tendril jack, and now this is where the hand, as you can see, fits in with a little chunk of hair for the character to grip onto. There's a little tiny bit of flash in there which you just need to scrape out. Just make sure there's no bits of flash on the hand itself as well, which isn't going to help. If you look at the hole in the tendril jack and the corresponding square in the hand, you can see how it should fit. Next up, there's a tiny little bit of mould line that goes up the back of the tendril jack. So just be very gentle at scraping that down. Obviously there is fur and hair texture there, so just be as careful as you can. A good, fresh, sharp, clean blade will work wonders with this. So next up, we want to test fit the legs. As you can see, there is a casting gate right at the top of the legs, which you just need to trim off. Please be aware when you are using a sharp knife, always to cut it away from you. Try not to get your fingers in the way. And if you are younger, please seek adult supervision when doing something like this. Just get a bit of sandpaper and just tidy it up. As you can see, that's now a nice flush fit to the side of the body. If you do that to both legs and get those glued on, and then we can start adding it to the base and getting the rider situated. Once the legs are glued in place, we can pop him on the base and just give him a test fit before we glue everything down. It's up to you whether you glue him onto the stone base first or as a last step. Now it's time for the rider himself. Now there is a mould line along the leg, so just tidy that up. Quick scrape and a bit of sandpaper, nice fine sandpaper, and that will be gone. Test fit the body to the legs because we want to put those onto the tendril jack as one piece. So the body fits quite nicely there, so we'll glue that in place. There is a slight line under there which I decided to clean up. Just under the one arm as well. Once you've glued the torso to the legs, you can let that sit for a couple of minutes so it's nicely cured and a good solid connection, and then we can test fit it on the body of the tendril jack itself. And we'll just glue that in place because that's a nice connection and there's no mould lines to clear up. Careful with your super glue, you don't want too much on there. Give that a good squeeze, make sure it's sat properly. And then once that's cured, we can move on to the rest. Next part of the puzzle is to put in the arms of the tendril jack. Now these only fit one way. There is a smooth side and a textured side to them. The smooth side fits on the inside towards the body and they sit like that. Now if you get those in first, then we have 2 points that we can connect the leg to, which also includes the hands for the tendril jack, and that creates a nice positive joint. Make sure you clean up the arms first. Sand any mould lines down. Trim off any bumps from the casting gate. Just make sure you don't sand too much. You don't want to take the texture and detail off of the model itself, off the piece itself. So we'll get those glued in place. You can see here I've got a little bit too much super glue on. If you're wearing gloves, it's easy enough to just wipe it off. But if you aren't wearing gloves, please do not do that. You will end up with your finger stuck to the model, and we don't want that. A cheap plastic toothbrush will usually do the job for wiping away excess super glue. So onto the legs, trim down any mould lines as before. There's a little casting gate on the bottom of the foot as well, which needs to be taken off, and then you can give them a test fit, and you can see here how they sit on the model. A little bit of super glue on the joints. Usually I find putting the super glue on any connections which are protruding rather than recessed, so they stick up, is a lot easier than trying to get super glue into a small hole. But you don't want to put super glue on too many different places where you might forget, so try and keep it onto the one piece. So instead of putting a bit of super glue onto the leg and then onto the arm of the tendril jack that's already connected, you just put both pieces of glue onto the leg itself. And same again with the other side. Hold it in place briefly, and there we go. Now it's time for the helmet. Again, check for mould lines. Make sure there's no casting gates or anything like that. There's a slight mould line on the neck. And give it a quick brush. The square on the bottom is a mounting point, so don't cut that off. Give it a test fit. That looks pretty good. So we can glue that in place. You can see the back there took a little bit of a wiggle, but press it down and it should sort of snap into place. Now this is the back of the one arm, so the square mounting point needs to stay, but the cylindrical section, which is a casting gate, will need to come off and get sanded down. Then just pop that in place, give it a test fit, make sure everything goes together nicely, and then we can glue it down. This is a very small piece, so please be very careful, make sure you don't glue your hands to it as well. It's easily done. Every modeller has done it at some point in their life, but we try and minimise that. Perfect, well, that's that hand on. Now for the spear. Now, resin has a tendency to bend, especially very, very thin parts. There are two ways of doing this. The safest way is to use a hairdryer to heat it up and bend it back into place. However, if you're a bit more confident, the quickest way of doing it is to get a small jar of boiling water And please be very careful if you are doing this, and dip the section of model in that you wish to bend, and it'll instantly make it soft and you can reposition it. Then just give it a few seconds and it'll start to cool down and stay in the position that you've put it in. Again, if you are younger, please seek adult supervision when doing this, and as always, be very, very careful if you do decide to work this way. For beginners, a hairdryer is probably the preferable option. And we just need to mount that hand onto the torso. There we go, that fits very, very nicely. The last part of the model is the little flag that hangs down from the spear. So what you need to do with this first of all is cut off the tiny cylindrical piece from the tip of the flag. See, we try and zoom in here. That is a casting gate, so be very careful. I would advise, if you are a beginner, don't cut towards yourself as I'm doing here. Cut away from yourself, or pop it onto a table to cut downwards onto the table, and don't apply too much force. This is years of experience being able to control a knife in this way without injuring myself. Now you'll need a toothbrush, and be very gentle because you need to clean out where the flag connects to the spear itself. So you just need to brush between those grooves. And then the flag hangs down, although you could put it any way you wanted, but it hangs down and sits right in the middle of each of those rings. So a little bit of glue on the spear itself is probably the easiest way to do it, rather than accidentally getting glue onto such a small piece. Pop that in and just hold it for a few seconds, and there we go. If you want to glue the model to your base, you can do that now if you've not done so already, or if you want to leave it separate for painting, whichever is your preference. All done. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you ever so much for watching, and we will see you in the next Broken Toad, Blacksun and Jim Henson build videos. Thank you very much. Bye bye.